Daniel had always known that finding a cheap apartment on an alien world came with risks. But as he stood in the doorway of his new shared living space, he realized that he had severely underestimated just how complicated things could get. Across the room stood his new roommate, a tall, strikingly beautiful alien woman with deep violet skin, sharp golden eyes, and long silver hair tied back into a thick braid. She was watching him with an intense curiosity, her expression unreadable, her posture straight like a warrior assessing an opponent. Daniel swallowed hard. His heart pounded as he reminded himself that this was just a simple housing arrangement, nothing more. But there was something about the way she looked at him, as if she was studying his every movement, that made him feel exposed. She took a step forward, her boots making a soft metallic sound against the floor. "You are the human." Her voice was smooth, confident. Daniel nodded. "Yeah. And you must be Selya." She tilted her head slightly. "Yes. I am Thal'Varen. You are the first human I have lived with. I expected someone larger." Daniel chuckled nervously. Yeah. Well, not all humans are built like warriors." He glanced around the shared apartment. It was surprisingly well furnished, with sleek alien tech embedded in the walls, a high-tech kitchen, and a large central space meant for training. That part worried him. Selya folded her arms, her muscles flexing subtly under her form-fitting combat suit. "I assumed when I was assigned a roommate, they would be capable, but perhaps I was mistaken." Daniel frowned. Capable of what, exactly? She stepped even closer, and he could feel the heat radiating from her body. "Mating," she said simply. Daniel choked on his own breath. Excuse me." Selya's golden eyes gleamed. "In my culture, if we are to share living quarters, it is assumed that we are compatible for a bond. You were not informed." Daniel's mind raced. He had heard rumors about how some alien species had different customs, but no one had warned him that signing a lease might double as a marriage proposal. No one mentioned that. I thought we were just, roommates." Selya frowned, as if the concept confused her. "Roommates? You mean to live together, but not bond?" "Exactly," Daniel said quickly. "Humans don't assume a relationship just because we share space. We take our time, get to know each other, date." He motioned vaguely with his hands. "There's a whole process." Selya studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I see. Your species is slower in such matters." "Not slow," Daniel protested. "We just. But you are weak." She interrupted, taking another step closer. Daniel blinked. "What?" She circled him now, inspecting him like a predator would its prey. "In my culture, a mate is chosen based on strength. To prove themselves, they must fight for the right to bond." Daniel let out a nervous laugh. "Yeah, see, humans don't really do that. We just talk to people and figure out if we like them." Selya looked unimpressed. "This does not seem effective. How does one prove their worth?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair, trying to keep up. By being kind. Supportive? Making someone laugh." Selya frowned deeply, as if he had just spoken nonsense. Then her expression shifted, her lips curving into something like amusement. "You will have to prove this to me, human. Show me how your kind bonds." Daniel exhaled, relieved that at least she wasn't demanding a fight to the death. "All right. Deal." Selya turned, moving toward a weapons rack along the wall. She picked up a small curved dagger and spun it in her fingers. "But if your way does not impress me, I will do things my way." Daniel swallowed hard. What had he just gotten himself into? Daniel woke up to the sound of something heavy slamming against the floor. His heart jumped as he bolted upright, his brain still sluggish from sleep. For a second, he thought an earthquake had hit the building. But no, it was just his alien roommate, Selya, in the middle of an early morning workout. She stood in the common area, wearing what looked like a training uniform, her toned muscles flexing as she lifted what had to be a solid metal bench over her head like it was nothing. Daniel rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was still dreaming. The bench wasn't some lightweight gym prop. It was part of the apartment's furniture. He had barely been able to scoot it across the floor last night when setting up his things. Selya caught his stare and grinned. "You are awake. Good. I was beginning to think humans needed too much sleep." She set the bench down with a loud thud that made the walls vibrate. Daniel groaned, rubbing the sleep from his face. "We need enough to function, yeah. You, on the other hand, apparently start your mornings by throwing furniture around." She frowned slightly, tilting her head. Strength must be tested daily. How else would one prove they are a worthy mate? There it was again, that misunderstanding about human relationships. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair as he swung his legs over the side of the bed. "Selya, I told you, humans don't choose partners based on physical strength. We don't have to wrestle each other to fall in love." Selya crossed her arms, her golden eyes filled with doubt. "This is what I do not understand. If not by strength, then how?" Daniel stood up, stretching out his sore limbs. "It's about connection. We spend time together. We get to know each other. We bond over conversations, shared experiences, and emotions. Not by bench pressing tables." She scoffed. "That sounds inefficient. In my culture, when two beings desire one another, they'd fight. The strongest earns the right to bond. There is no confusion, no uncertainty." Daniel chuckled dryly. "Yeah, well, in human relationships, it's less about dominance and more about understanding. People fall for someone because they trust them, because they laugh together, because they know they can rely on each other." Selya stared at him, as if processing his words. Then she suddenly turned and strode toward the kitchen. "Very well. I will test your method." Daniel blinked. "Wait. What?" She started grabbing random items from the kitchen cabinets. Bags of alien grains, a jar of something that looked suspiciously alive, and a stack of what seemed like prepackaged protein cubes. She dropped them on the counter with a determined look. "You said human bonding is about shared experiences. You will cook for me. You will prove your worth with food." Daniel rubbed his temples. "That's not exactly how dating works, but sure. Cooking is one way people show they care." Selya smirked. "Then cook. Impress me." Daniel sighed. No pressure or anything. He started digging through the limited kitchen supplies, trying to find something remotely edible for a human palate. The alien ingredients were labeled in a language he couldn't read, and half of them smelled like burning rubber. As he struggled to make sense of what was safe to use, Selya sat on the edge of the counter, watching him with keen interest. "In my culture, a meal prepared by one's mate is a sign of devotion. If the food is not good, the bond is rejected." Daniel froze, nearly dropping a container of what he hoped was some kind of salt. "Wait, you're telling me that if I mess this up, I fail your test?" Selya nodded solemnly. "Yes. If you are weak in battle, you are unworthy. If you cannot provide, you are unworthy." Daniel felt sweat forming on his forehead. This wasn't just a casual dinner. This was a life-or-death cooking challenge. He took a deep breath. He wasn't a professional chef, but he refused to be outdone by an alien who thought strength was the only thing that mattered. He worked carefully, selecting what smelled the least offensive and using whatever cooking method seemed logical. It was a mess, but after nearly an hour of improvising, he managed to put together a meal. He stepped back, looking down at the results, a strange mix of alien grains, sautéed protein cubes, and a light sauce that he hoped would bring the flavors together. Selya picked up a piece with her sharp claws, inspecting it. Then, with zero hesitation, she popped it into her mouth. Daniel held his breath. She chewed slowly, her expression unreadable. Then, after a long silence, she nodded. "Acceptable." Daniel exhaled in relief. "Glad to hear it." Selya smirked, picking up another bite. Perhaps human bonding is not entirely useless. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. Glad we're making progress. But just as he thought he was starting to understand her, Selya suddenly leaned forward, locking eyes with him. Now, since you have fed me, it is my turn to test you. Daniel blinked. Wait, what? Selya stood, stretching her powerful limbs before cracking her knuckles. We will spar. If your method of bonding is truly meaningful, you should be able to withstand a challenge. Daniel's stomach dropped. Oh, come on, I just cooked for you. Can't we bond over a movie or something? She grinned. Where is the fun in that? Before Daniel could argue, she lunged. Daniel barely had time to react before Selya launched at him, her speed blurring in his vision. He instinctively threw himself to the side, barely dodging as she landed exactly where he had just been standing. The floor vibrated beneath the impact, and he swore he felt a gust of wind from the sheer force of her movement. Whoa! Hold on. Can we talk about this first? Daniel shouted, stumbling backward. Selya tilted her head, her golden eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and mild confusion. You said humans bond through trust and shared experiences. But how can I trust you if I do not know your strength? Daniel waved his hands frantically. Strength isn't everything. Trust is built over time, through understanding, not punching each other in the face. Selya frowned, stepping closer with her muscles flexing under her fitted combat suit. You misunderstand. This is not about hurting you. This is about knowing you. Where you stand when challenged. How you react under pressure. Daniel exhaled, trying to keep his hands from shaking. Yeah. Well, right now, I react by wanting to run. A slow smirk curled at the edge of her lips. Then you would be unworthy. Daniel groaned. He knew he wasn't getting out of this. She wasn't trying to hurt him. At least he hoped not. But if he kept dodging, she'd assume he was a coward, and he didn't want to lose whatever fragile respect he'd managed to gain from her. Steeling himself, he took a deep breath and planted his feet. Fine, he muttered. If this is how you test people, let's get it over with. Selya's eyes lit up with approval. Good. Now defend yourself. Before he could even blink, she moved. This time, she wasn't aiming to hit him. She was testing him. She swept her leg low, a feint designed to make him react. Daniel instinctively jumped back, and in that moment, she twisted, moving like a dancer, catching his wrist with one swift motion. He barely had time to process what was happening before he was suddenly yanked forward, spun around, and thrown onto the couch. He landed with a soft thud, breath escaping his lungs. That was unnecessary, he wheezed. Selya crossed her arms, looking unimpressed. You are quick, but lack balance. You are reactive, not strategic. Daniel groaned, rubbing his shoulder. Thanks for the constructive criticism. Selya extended a hand to help him up, and he hesitated before taking it. Her grip was firm but controlled, as if she knew exactly how much strength to apply without crushing his fingers. You have courage, at least, she admitted. It is rare for one to stand before a Thal'Varen warrior without fear. Oh, I'm terrified, Daniel admitted. I'm just too tired to run. To his surprise, Selya actually laughed, a short, genuine chuckle that softened the intensity in her eyes. Perhaps your kind is different from what I expected. Daniel took that as a small victory. Now, Selya continued, since I have tested your strength, we will continue your method of bonding. Teach me how a human would properly pursue a mate. Daniel blinked. You mean, like, dating? Selya nodded. Yes. Show me how your species builds a connection. If your way is truly superior, I must see it with my own eyes. Daniel ran a hand down his face. He had never thought he'd have to explain dating to an alien. But at least this was better than fighting. Okay, he said, thinking fast. First thing you need to know, humans don't just decide to mate right away. We start with something casual, like going out for food or watching a movie together. Something simple to get to know each other. Selya considered this. So humans do not fight, but they still observe potential mates before bonding. Yeah, exactly. Except we don't test each other with combat. We talk, spend time together, and figure out if we actually like the person. Selya tilted her head. And how do you know when the bonding is successful? Daniel hesitated. It's different for everyone. But usually, it happens when two people feel comfortable together. When they enjoy each other's company and feel like they can trust the other person completely. Selya nodded slowly, as if processing a new battle strategy. Then she straightened. Very well. We will attempt this human method of dating. I will select a suitable activity. Daniel sighed in relief. Good. Just pick something chill. Training session, Selya announced immediately. Daniel groaned. That's not what I meant. You said bonding requires spending time together, Selya countered. Combat training is how I spend my time. It is only logical that we should engage in this together. Daniel gave her a look. What happened to watching a movie or getting food? Selya folded her arms. Very well. We will watch a movie, but you must select one that is instructive. Daniel paused. You mean like a romance movie? Yes. If I am to understand this human bonding, I must observe it firsthand. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure? Some of those movies are super cheesy. Selya narrowed her eyes. Do you wish for me to understand or not? He sighed. All right. We'll find a romance movie. An hour later, Daniel sat beside a highly attentive alien warrior as they watched one of the cheesiest romance films he could find. It was the kind of movie filled with slow-motion glances, over-the-top declarations of love, and dramatic music playing in the background every 5 minutes. Selya watched intensely, analyzing every scene as if she were studying a battle strategy. Every time a character kissed, she tilted her head in thought. Whenever someone delivered a dramatic love confession, she nodded in approval. At one point, she turned to Daniel and asked, Do all human couples speak in poetic riddles before mating? Daniel nearly choked on his drink. No, that's just for the movies. Selya looked skeptical. But you said this would help me understand. He sighed. It's exaggerated. Real relationships aren't like this. They're more natural. Less dramatic music playing in the background. Selya seemed disappointed. The music is effective. Perhaps I should incorporate it into my courtship methods. Daniel chuckled. Please don't. As the movie ended, Selya leaned back, crossing her arms. I still do not fully understand your way of bonding, but I see that it is different, less direct, but effective in its own way. Daniel raised an eyebrow. So, does that mean you're willing to give human dating a shot? No combat. She smirked. No combat. For now. Daniel exhaled. It wasn't a perfect victory, but at least he wouldn't have to dodge punches every morning. Selya stood, stretching. Tomorrow, we continue this bonding method. Daniel groaned. Oh joy. But secretly, he was kind of looking forward to it. Daniel had barely gotten used to the idea of teaching an alien warrior about human dating when his life took another unexpected turn. It started with a message. The apartment's communication terminal lit up with an urgent notification, and Selya strode over to check it. Daniel was halfway through making coffee when she suddenly went rigid. What is it? He asked, setting his mug down. Selya's jaw tightened. A challenge. Daniel blinked. A challenge for what? She turned, her golden eyes flashing. For me. That sent a cold shiver down his spine. Wait, what kind of challenge? Selya's expression darkened. A warrior's claim. Another has expressed interest in me. If I do not deny it, I must face the challenge, or accept the suitor. Daniel stared. His brain needed a second to fully process what she had just said. Someone else had challenged her for a bond. And because of her culture's traditions, she either had to fight them off or accept them as her mate. His stomach twisted. And who exactly is challenging you? Selya's grip tightened around the edge of the terminal. Gorax. Daniel groaned. That sounds like a guy with too many muscles. Selya's lips pressed into a thin line. He is a warrior from a high-ranking house. Powerful. Respected. He has pursued me before, but I rejected him. This time, he has issued a formal challenge. If I do not respond, it will be seen as acceptance. Daniel's fingers curled into fists. He didn't like the sound of this at all. So let me get this straight. If you don't fight him off, he automatically wins. Correct. And what happens if you beat him? Then he must accept my refusal and withdraw his claim. Daniel let out a breath. All right. Well, that sounds simple enough. You just kick his ass, and we go back to normal. But Selya didn't look relieved. She was staring at him, studying him. Daniel narrowed his eyes. What? Her gaze was unreadable. If you were Thal'Varen, you would have the right to fight for your own claim. If you defeated Gorax, he would be forced to withdraw, because you would have already proven yourself superior. Daniel nearly spat out his coffee. Excuse me. Selya tilted her head. Are you not interested? Daniel coughed. That's not the point. I mean, He gestured at himself. I'm human. I'm not built for this kind of thing. Your people settle romantic disputes with combat. My people settle them with awkward conversations and breakup texts. Selya let out a breath. I see. Then I will handle it. Something about the way she said it made his chest tighten. She wasn't disappointed. She wasn't angry. But there was something there, a quiet resignation, as if she had already expected this outcome, as if she had never truly considered him an option. And that bothered him. A lot. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him in those moments when they were alone. Maybe it was the fact that she had been so willing to learn his way of bonding. Maybe it was the fact that despite all her strength, all her confidence, she had still asked him to teach her. Daniel hated the idea of standing back and doing nothing. His stomach churned as he made his decision. Wait, he said, before he could stop himself. What if I did fight? Selya's head snapped toward him so fast, he thought she might get whiplash. You would challenge Gorax. Daniel swallowed hard. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, and I'd probably get my ass kicked. But he hesitated, then sighed. I don't like the idea of you having to deal with this alone. And if this is your culture's way of proving value, then maybe it's time I stop running from it. Selya stared at him, really stared, as if trying to understand something she had never considered before. Then, for the first time, she looked uncertain. You would risk injury for me? She asked quietly. Daniel let out a dry chuckle. Honestly, I already feel like I risk my life every day just living with you. Selya let out a short laugh, but her expression was unreadable. Then she stepped forward, suddenly close enough that Daniel could feel the warmth of her presence. You are not Thal'Varen, she said softly. And yet, you act as if you are. Daniel shrugged. I just don't like losing people I care about. Selya's gaze flickered. Her fingers twitched slightly, as if she had almost reached for him, but stopped herself. Then she took a small step back and nodded. Then I will train you, she said. Daniel blinked. Wait. What? If you are to challenge Gorax, you must prepare. You cannot win in brute strength. But there are other ways. Daniel rubbed his face. This is happening, isn't it? Selya smirked. It is. And just like that, Daniel found himself thrown into training for a fight he wasn't sure he could win. For the next few days, Selya drilled him endlessly. She didn't expect him to outmuscle Gorax. That would be impossible. But she did teach him how to move, how to dodge, how to use an opponent's strength against them. You are not faster. You are not stronger. But you are smaller, she said, circling him during one of their sessions. Use that. Strike when he least expects it. Never engage him head-on. Make him exhaust himself. Daniel gritted his teeth as he dodged yet another one of her attacks. Easy for you to say. You're not the one getting thrown around. Selya smirked. Perhaps you should stop allowing yourself to be thrown then. He groaned. You really enjoy this, don't you? Selya shrugged. It is interesting. I have never trained a human before. You adapt quickly. Daniel exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, well, I'm highly motivated. She gave him a long look. Then, for the first time, she offered her hand to him, not to throw him, not to challenge him, but simply to help him up. Daniel hesitated, then took it. For a moment, they just stood there, their fingers still loosely touching. Then Selya pulled away, clearing her throat. Tomorrow. You will face him tomorrow. Daniel swallowed. No backing out now. The challenge was set, and whether he liked it or not, he was about to fight for something far more important than his pride. The crowd gathered in the open-air training grounds, the air thick with anticipation. Warriors from various houses lined the perimeter, murmuring in hushed tones as they waited for the challenge to begin. Even among the alien spectators, it was clear that the upcoming fight wasn't just any ordinary match. It was a clash of cultures, of expectations, of fate. Daniel stood in the center, his heart pounding as he took in the sheer size of his opponent. Gorax was a mountain of muscle, broad shoulders, thick arms, and piercing dark eyes that regarded him as little more than an inconvenience. The alien's presence alone was enough to make Daniel question every decision that had led him here. Beside him, Selya stood tall, her golden eyes unwavering as she looked at Daniel. Remember what I have taught you. You cannot match him in strength. You must outthink him. Daniel swallowed hard. Yeah, well, outthinking him won't stop him from crushing me like a soda can. Selya's lips quirked slightly. Trust yourself. You have already proven you are willing to stand for something. Now prove you can stand against something. Daniel exhaled slowly. No turning back now. A deep voice boomed across the arena as a Thal'Varen elder stepped forward. The challenge has been accepted. The terms are clear. If the human is victorious, Gorax will withdraw his claim on Selya. If he loses, he forfeits his right to contest. Let the trial begin. The moment the words left the elder's mouth, Gorax charged. Daniel barely had time to throw himself to the side before a massive fist slammed into the ground where he had just been standing. Dust and debris exploded outward, and Daniel coughed as he scrambled back. Gorax turned, snarling. You cannot run forever, human. Daniel didn't answer, because he wasn't running. He was thinking. The Thal'Varen warriors around them were trained for direct combat. They relied on strength, endurance, raw power. But Daniel was faster, smaller, and most importantly, smarter. He kept moving, dodging another swing, then another. Gorax was strong, but slow. He threw punches meant to break bones, but they were predictable. Daniel remembered Selya's words, make him exhaust himself. So he did. For the next several minutes, Daniel focused on staying just out of reach. Every time Gorax lunged, Daniel moved. Every time he tried to grab him, Daniel twisted away. Frustration boiled in the alien's eyes. The crowd began murmuring. The fight should have been over by now. Gorax should have dominated in mere seconds, but instead, he was swinging at air. And then, Daniel saw his opening. Gorax made a critical mistake. He overreached, putting too much weight into an attack. His balance shifted for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Daniel ducked low, pivoted on his heel, and with every ounce of strength he had, he drove his elbow into the side of Gorax's knee. A sharp crack rang out. Gorax roared in pain, his leg buckling as he staggered to the side. For the first time, the massive warrior looked off balance. Daniel didn't hesitate. He moved in, quick and ruthless. He jumped onto Gorax's back, wrapping his arm around the alien's thick throat. The crowd gasped. Gorax stumbled, clawing at Daniel's grip, trying to throw him off. But Daniel held on, locking the hold tighter. The bigger warrior thrashed, his strength still immense, but Daniel had him in a position where raw power wasn't enough. Gorax's movements grew sluggish. His massive body wavered. His breaths became ragged. And then, he dropped to one knee. The elder raised his hand. Enough. Daniel released his hold, stumbling back as Gorax collapsed onto his hands, gasping for air. Silence fell over the arena. Then, slowly, murmurs turned into cheers. Daniel blinked, barely able to process it. He had won. Selya stepped forward, her gaze locked onto him. For the first time, there was something different in her expression. Something deeply, profoundly impressed. Gorax coughed, his voice thick with disbelief. "You tricked me." Daniel exhaled, still catching his breath. "No, I outplayed you." The elder stepped forward, raising his hand. "By the laws of our people, Gorax has lost the challenge. His claim is void. The human has proven his worth." Daniel turned to Selya. And Selya smiled. A rare, genuine smile. Not one of amusement, not one of condescension, one of respect. She stepped toward him, her golden eyes locked onto his. "You fought well, Daniel." He let out a weak laugh. Well enough to win, apparently. Selya studied him for a long moment. Then, with a fluid motion, she placed her hand over his chest, right where his heart was beating hard. Daniel froze. "This," she murmured, "is how a Thal'Varen acknowledges a true bond." His throat went dry. "Selya, does this mean?" "It means," she interrupted, her voice soft, "that you have earned my respect." Daniel exhaled slowly. He could feel the weight of the moment, the shift in their dynamic. She no longer saw him as a mere human trying to keep up. She saw him as an equal, as someone worthy. And for the first time since stepping into that ring, Daniel realized something. Winning the fight wasn't the real victory. Winning her trust was. The celebration that followed Daniel's victory was nothing short of overwhelming. Thal'Varen warriors, many of whom had barely acknowledged his presence before, now clapped him on the back, nodding in approval. Some even raised their weapons in salute, a gesture of deep respect among their people. Daniel wasn't sure how to feel about it all. He had barely survived that fight, and yet here he was, being treated like some kind of hero. Selya remained by his side the entire time, watching the interactions with a neutral expression. But Daniel could tell something had changed. The way she looked at him was different, not just with respect, but with something else, something unreadable. "You should eat," Selya finally said as they walked through the crowd. "You expended much energy during the challenge. Your body will require sustenance." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Is this your way of saying you're taking me out to dinner?" Selya frowned. "I am offering to provide for you after your victory. This is a sign of honor." Daniel chuckled. "Yeah, well, in human culture, that's called a date." Selya paused mid-step, turning to him with a curious expression. "A date," she repeated. Daniel shrugged. "Yeah, you know, two people go out, share a meal, spend time together. It's kind of a big deal in human bonding rituals." Selya considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Then we shall go on a date." Daniel nearly choked. "Wait, you're just agreeing to that? Just like that?" Selya raised an eyebrow. "You have shown strength, intelligence, and determination. You risked yourself for my honor. By all Thal'Varen traditions, you have proven yourself as a worthy mate." Daniel's brain short-circuited. "Mate." Selya frowned slightly. "Is this not what you intended?" His mouth opened and closed. Was it? He had fought for her, trained with her, bonded with her in ways he never expected. But did that mean he was ready for Daniel? Selya's voice brought him back to reality. He looked up and saw something in her expression that made his chest tighten. For the first time since they had met, she looked uncertain. "You do not have to accept," she said, more carefully this time. I have followed your traditions, learned your ways. I am willing to understand your path, as you have tried to understand mine. But if you do not wish for this bond, I will not force it upon you." Daniel's breath caught. She was giving him a choice. She, who had grown up in a culture where strength dictated fate, where bonds were decided by battle, was letting him decide. He let out a slow exhale, rubbing the back of his neck. "Selya, I didn't fight Gorax just because I wanted to prove myself. I did it because—" He hesitated. Because he didn't want to lose her. Because the thought of her being with someone else had made him furious. Because, despite everything, despite their differences, he had come to care about her. Selya watched him, patiently waiting. Daniel stepped forward. "I don't know what this means for us," he admitted. "But if you're willing to figure it out, so am I." A slow smile spread across Selya's lips. Not the smirk of a warrior sizing up an opponent, not the grin of amusement she often wore when he fumbled through Thal'Varen customs. A real smile. One just for him. "Then let us go on this date," she said. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Yeah, let's do that." And just like that, everything changed. The restaurant Selya chose was not what Daniel expected. He had assumed they'd go somewhere casual, something small, a quiet place where they could talk. Instead, he found himself in a high-end Thal'Varen dining hall, surrounded by imposing warriors and alien nobles. The place was massive, with towering stone pillars and a glowing blue waterfall at the center of the room. Selya walked beside him with perfect confidence, unfazed by the stares. Daniel, on the other hand, felt wildly out of place. He leaned toward her, whispering, "This is a little fancy for a first date, don't you think?" Selya glanced at him. It is customary to bring a mate to an establishment worthy of their status. Daniel snorted. "And what status is that?" Selya smirked. "Champion of the human way." Daniel laughed. He couldn't help it. They sat at a table near the waterfall, and almost immediately, servers brought out an array of alien dishes. Some of it looked delicious. Some of it looked alive. Daniel poked at something that was vibrating slightly. "Selya, is this food supposed to move?" Selya glanced at it, then nodded. "It is still fresh." Daniel slowly pushed the plate away. "I think I'll stick to something that isn't actively trying to escape." Selya chuckled, setting down her utensils. "You are different from anyone I have known." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Because I refuse to eat food that fights back." "No." She leaned slightly closer, her golden eyes softening. "Because you make me question things I have never questioned before." Daniel felt his heart skip a beat. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The sounds of the restaurant faded into the background. Selya tilted her head slightly. "In human culture, is this the moment where I am expected to kiss you?" Daniel nearly choked on his drink. "Whoa, wait, where did that come from?" Selya frowned. "In the romance films we watched, this is usually when the male and female engage in a kiss. It is the natural progression of the bond, is it not?" Daniel felt his brain melting. "I mean, yeah, but movies don't always follow real life." Selya studied him for a moment, then slowly sat back. "I see. You wish to wait." Daniel exhaled. "Not wait. I just think some things should happen naturally, you know." Selya considered this, then nodded. "Then I will follow your way." Daniel chuckled. "You're really taking this human bonding thing seriously, huh?" Selya smirked. "I must be thorough in my studies." He shook his head, smiling. This woman would be the end of him. As the night went on, their conversation flowed effortlessly. They laughed. They debated. They shared stories. And for the first time, Daniel realized that this wasn't just about proving himself anymore. He genuinely wanted to be here, with her. When the night ended, they walked side by side through the neon-lit streets, neither in a hurry to part ways. Selya glanced at him. "So, have I succeeded in this human bonding ritual?" Daniel smirked. Well, let's see. You made me laugh, almost poisoned me with alien food, and nearly kissed me because of a bad rom-com. Yeah, I'd say you did pretty well. Selya chuckled, shaking her head. Then, before he could react, she reached out and gently took his hand. Daniel froze. Selya met his gaze, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. I may have started this journey to understand your ways, but I think, Daniel, that I have come to understand you. His throat felt dry. Yeah. She nodded. Daniel squeezed her hand. And in that moment he knew. This wasn't just a lesson anymore. This was something real. Daniel had never thought he would find himself here, standing on a balcony beneath the twin moons of an alien world, his fingers intertwined with those of a Thal'Varen warrior who had once considered him weak and insignificant. But now, as Selya stood beside him, golden eyes reflecting the distant stars, he realized something. He had changed. And so had she. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. Ever since their first official date, things between them had shifted into something neither of them had quite expected. Selya had embraced human customs with a level of curiosity and intensity that both amused and terrified him. She treated their bond like a battle strategy, analyzing every aspect of human romance with meticulous attention. And Daniel, he had found himself falling for her in ways he couldn't quite explain. At first, it had been fascination. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Then it became admiration for her strength, her confidence, her unwavering loyalty. But now it was something more, something deeper. Selya shifted beside him, her gaze thoughtful. You have been quiet, she observed. Daniel chuckled. Just thinking. She tilted her head. About what? Daniel hesitated, then smirked. About how I never expected to be standing here, on an alien planet, holding hands with a warrior princess who once tried to throw me through a wall. Selya let out a soft chuckle. You survived. Yeah, barely. Selya squeezed his hand slightly, her touch warm. You have grown stronger. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Physically? Not really. She shook her head. Not just in body. In spirit. You are no longer the human who hesitated when I first spoke of bonding. You have fought, learned, adapted. Daniel exhaled. Yeah, well, you kind of forced me to. Selya smirked. You had the option to run. Daniel turned to her, his expression softening. I didn't want to. A flicker of emotion passed through her golden eyes. For once, she didn't have a quick response. Instead, she turned fully toward him, their hands still linked. I have been thinking as well, she admitted. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Oh. She nodded. At first, I sought to understand your ways. But now, I find myself wanting your ways. Your traditions. Your bond. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. Selya took a slow breath. In my culture, once a warrior chooses a mate, it is a permanent commitment. But I have come to understand that humans take their time. They do not claim what they do not yet fully understand. Daniel hesitated, unsure where she was going with this. I wish to ask you something, Daniel, Selya said. He swallowed. Okay, go for it. She stepped closer, her free hand lifting to rest gently against his chest. Would you wish to stay by my side? Not as a challenge, not as a lesson, but as something real. Daniel's breath caught. This wasn't just another cultural misunderstanding. This wasn't just her trying to learn about human relationships. This was her choosing him. Not out of tradition, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. He looked at her, this powerful, incredible woman who had once seen him as weak, but now stood before him as an equal. Daniel smiled. Yeah, Selya, I do. A rare softness crossed her face, and then, before he could react, she leaned in. The kiss was unexpected but perfect. It wasn't the kind of dramatic, slow-motion moment from the romance movies she had studied. It was real, warm, strong, and full of unspoken understanding. When they pulled apart, Selya looked at him, her expression both pleased and amused. That, she murmured, was enjoyable. Daniel laughed breathlessly. Glad you think so. Selya smirked. Shall we do it again? Daniel grinned. I was hoping you'd ask. And under the twin moons, with an entire alien world watching, Daniel and Selya finally found what they had been searching for all along: each other.